So welcome to Leicester Fan TV. We got a bit mixed up there because I thought he was going to intro. But welcome to the Tactics Talk for Leicester versus Leeds. Probably the biggest game of the season, Sam.
Definitely the toughest.
It's again, we thought Southampton were going to be tough. We kind of breezed past them away from home. Now we're at home to probably one of the most informed teams, if I'm not mistaken, in Leeds now. What do you kind of say to this team? Obviously, they lost to someone like Stoke a few weeks back, but other than that, they've been pretty much consistent.
I don't think they have been consistent, because if they were consistent, they wouldn't be 14 points behind us on the same amount of games.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be a very tough team, don't get me wrong. They're definitely going to be the hardest team we face this season. And at home, I think our record isn't as good as away. I think we're a lot better when we're away because we can play the way we want to. Leeds are going to come against us, and I think they're going to sit well. They're going to attack well. They've also got a very strong team, and it would be an interesting result for us. I genuinely think if we do end up beating Leeds, I won't say the season done, because anything can happen. You're obviously at the QPR game really at the weekend, and we didn't play amazingly, but we still won 2-1. But for me, if we can get at least a draw, I think we're due for something other than a win in a weird way. We obviously won a lot of games in a row. I think this would be a record-breaking win if we were to win consecutive wins in a row, something like that. If I'm not mistaken, there's some kind of record. You can probably, someone in the comments can let us know. But I do think against they're a tough team, but I think their form for me recently, like you say, they lost to Stoke the other day, and then Stoke found a little bit of form. But someone like Leeds, if they were a good team, they would have picked up more points than they have. And yeah, they're in third place right now, but when you look at how many points the same games as, they're 14 points behind. For me, I would at least like to see a draw, a bare minimum against them.
Yeah, just look at the table now. Leeds away from home have won 3, lost 3, and drew 1. But in the last 5 games, it looks like they've won 4 out of the 5. That's overall, obviously not away from home because they've only won 3. Yeah. But overall, they're 4 wins and 1 loss in the last 5. We're obviously back wins. 5 of our games, home and away. So realistically, we should be winning. But it's, like I say, it's the toughest test yet, and it's probably the biggest game this season, other than Ipswich, if they are still in that position by when we play them at Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, Ipswich, obviously, they've carried on their great form, but they have been very, I wouldn't say lucky, but inconsistent. They just beat Plymouth 2-3 at Plymouth. So, and again, they've not had, I mean, I say they've not had, they're probably doing all right by their records, considering it's the first time in the Championship. I don't know if it's ever or in a long time, but for them to just scrape a win away at Plymouth, I think eventually their time, I think, will come and they won't have the depth because they've just come from League One. And they will eventually start to slow down. So it's weird. It's hard to tell because we are technically the best team, but we need to just keep that form going. You know, against Sunderland and QPR, I think we were very shaky. And there were some moments where I thought this is going to be a draw or go against us and not get the result we want. So Leeds is going to be a tough one after 2 results, which probably argue haven't been that good. But I know we got the results, but they overall weren't amazing. So it's going to be a tough one, and I think it's going to be the toughest game, and that's what everyone expects.
Yeah, again, guys, make sure to put your teams in, and obviously your comments, see who you think's got the better team going into on Friday's match. As I just change over to the scene. So, Sam, obviously, we've said it the last couple of times we've been on these shows. Hermanson's just in there, unless you do want to put someone like Ward or Iverson in there. No. I think we might as well just go straight into the defence.
Yeah, so, just keep it the same. Defence, I mean, I think we're going to go back to the strongest 11 we can. It could be a very strong team. So Vestergaard in the middle of the 3 looked very solid, been a very good player so far for us. Can't really complain with how he's been doing. Looked fairly solid on the left side. I'm going to put Justin in there again because Doyle's out injured.
Yeah.
No one else can really cover that role, and Justin's doing fairly solid. 5s for me. This is the right centre back. I do think Cody comes back out. I don't think he was amazing against QPR, and you know this back 3 has been doing very well, and it has been getting some comfortable wins. And hopefully, I just think that's the best way we can line up for Leeds in the defence.
Yeah, I'm basically just going to carbon copy you because it's the only way we're going to go in this game, surely. Unless there's no injuries coming into the press conference the next couple of days, I can't see there's any other way this could happen, really. For me, you're right, Cody wasn't great, in my opinion. I don't think he fits in as well in the best 11, if you know what I mean. Vestergaard does what he does best, and he fits the style perfectly. But someone like Cody, as much as he's probably a higher level than a few of these players, he doesn't seem to fit the system just as well for me. I don't know why. I think he's just not comfortable in that role, like he has been for other teams. So into the midfield, we did mention about Winks maybe getting dropped in the QPR game, which I was surprised he didn't. We obviously saw Ricardo get dropped, and we saw a few other players like Chowdhury come in, which we obviously mentioned, but I don't think we were going to do that. And I thought we was going to replace him with Winks for Chowdhury, but he played in the defence. What's your kind of take on this now? Do we just stick them straight back in?
It's best 11, yeah. I mean, I think my team was virtually correct. For QPR, I did say we'll see a few changes. I said I thought I'd see Winks in there. I think the only one I got wrong in the end was Alvarez in for Dewsbury. That was me just doing a precaution and seeing that maybe he'll get changed around if he's been pushed up to the senior team. But again, apart from that, I think I was pretty much spot on with it. So I think this week we are going to see the strongest 11, regardless of cards and what have you. You know, eventually, if the bookings, I don't know when the threshold changes, where the 5 yellow cards no longer means bookings. I know that it does change at some point.
Yeah,
however many games.
I don't know. I think it's. I want to know what it is now, but I can't remember. So,
but yeah, anyway, at some point they're either going to get that yellow card and have the game suspension, or it's going to go over the threshold and they're not going to. It's not going to matter.
But I'll just quickly mention that we're glad that it didn't happen against QPR because we need these boys and these guys back in this team for this game.
Well, it's game management, like I said. I think when people saying you don't want them to get booked, I did say in the last tactics showed that Winks has been on a yellow card away from suspension for the 4 games before QPR, so he's managed to not get one in the previous 4. Couldn't see him getting against QPR, who again nothing special, but they did an okay job against us, to be honest. But yeah, full strength team. I think everyone pretty much knows who that is now. Winks definitely in there, and Pereira would be the other option on the right central defensive mid role. And / right back role. That's definitely strongest line of defense. I can pretty much guarantee you're going to do the same thing. I think.
Probably. I don't want to keep being a carbon copy, but I think we've finally got to a point now where we can name our first strongest starting 11.
I think it's just like managing the whole team. Obviously, last week we both changed it around. A handful of players came in and out because we knew that QPR would be a little bit easier than Leeds. And we wanted to rest some players. We've had a good break now. It's a 6-day rest period from when we do play. Obviously, it's only Tuesday today, but this is when we're doing tactics show. So hopefully this is the team that does come out. I think we're all pretty much going to agree, even the people in the comments. I mean, you can obviously have your say and, say what you want.
Welcome. Kian, evening. I don't know where you're from, but it's nice and bright here still. Danny says, I'm guessing he's a Leeds fan. I'm going with a Leicester 3-2 win. Even a Leeds fan saying that we're going to win.
I think if you look at it on paper, the Leeds have a very good team. They've found some good players and they're having a decent season. But for me, our team is better. I think we do have a better team. I think we managed to keep a lot more of our key players, and whether that's due to money or contracts, I think we're taking it. I wouldn't say more seriously, but we are taking it with obviously Premier League standard, which obviously comes at a toll when it costs a lot of money. So we're first in the league because we've got the players that are probably Premier League quality. But again, that shows on the wages. We've seen a lot of things. Our wages are the highest, our team costs the highest. And that takes a toll on the club itself having that in the Championship because the money's just not there to afford. What it's probably looking at onwards of 400 million pounds this season at the moment with all the players and wages. So it's a very expensive season to do in the Championship. But I just think we do have the better team, but it's a tough one to say because Leeds are finding a little bit of form. They're doing fairly decent. Obviously, not had the best start to the season. They're actually down in the bottom half of the table, but now sitting fairly decently in third. They're probably going to think they can come and get something. And you probably would argue that if we're not switched on from minute one, like we weren't against QPR, there was times where we were switching off and we're giving the ball away. If we do that against someone like Leeds, as we said, if we do it against the Premier League team the way we play now, they'll come and they'll attack us and they'll get something from it. And I think Leeds is the same principle. If we give them space, give them the ball, give them any time on it, they will come and they'll have some dangerous attacks against us.
Yeah, and then Gav does say on paper, yes, it could be difficult, but we're going to walk it, apparently.
Is that the Leeds game or the league?
I don't know, but it says on paper it should be a difficult game because they have still got a lot of their Premier League side. Yes, they lost a few big players, but
so did we.
That's what I mean. This is the two kind of, would you say, big relegation sides. Obviously, you've got Southampton, but we kind of shut them up in a way because we beat them 4-1. I
don't know. I genuinely don't know because Leeds have had such a mixed start to the season. Yeah, they're in third, but I think this season in the Championship, again, when we've played so many games in the league, the teams are in it. It's a bad league, and I don't want to sound harsh, but the teams that are in it, when you're playing teams like Rotherham, Sheffield Wednesday, QPR, and down near the bottom, and you see the standard of football that it is, it's like, this is a rubbish league. I'm bored of it already, and I know we're winning, but I just want to play Premier League football again because I think that's where we deserve to be. For me, Leeds, fairly decent team, but again, last season we were saying we should have beat them. Season before you would have said we should beat them. For me, this season, not much has changed. I think we should still be beating a team like Leeds. And yeah, they've got a good team. I can't knock that. But I just think our team's better and good enough to win. And if we do want to come back up to the Premier League, we have to beat Leeds, who, in all honesty, when it comes to the end of the season, they're going to be in that number 2/number 3 spot.
Yeah, we'll move into the attacking area of the pitch now then. We've got a few players maybe coming back into the fold to be picked now. Casey McAteer getting a substitution minutes last game.
Yeah,
we weren't hoping for that because we were told that he's still not ready, but he came on. He did well for the time he came on, and I think maybe Atcombe could be back fit.
I mean, again, there's a lot of competition back in the wingers roles. You could argue some players need to come out. For me, Mavididi against QPR, I thought he had a really stinky game.
I thought he was pretty average as well, but
I don't think
the goal I think the goal helped him.
The goal, it was a decent goal. Obviously, it was a big deflection. Don't think it would have gone in.
No.
I say I've been Mavididi's quite a big fan of him this season. I thought QPR had a very stinky game. Obviously, you were at the game, and I don't know if you noticed, there was a lot of passes where he was just there were sloppy passes, and eventually stuff like that does lead to goals. So I am going to start with Mavididi because I think he is the best player available for that position, and I think he's looked fairly solid this season. But for me, he needs to cut out the sloppiness, and if he does it against Leeds and they capitalise on it, you do have Atgun, you do have McAteer, and even Fatui. They can swap into that position at half time, and I hope Enzo sees. And I know he doesn't really, but I hope he sees that if we're not doing as well, or if someone's making a mistake against Leeds, you kind of have to change things around. Otherwise, they're going to keep capitalising. I think we were lucky that some of the sloppy passing we did against QPR only really led to one goal because you can watch it back. It was probably one of the worst performances this season that we've played. I think we were better when we lost to Hull, Reedy. I know it's weird saying that, but I think we just gave the ball away way too much for saying that we faced the second bottom team. I thought it'd be a cakewalk. I said it in the last week's tactic show. So some of these players need to cut out the sloppy passing. Mavididi, I think one of them, he's looked fairly solid, but he was a little bit sloppy against QPR. I'm hoping he's not against Leeds.
Yeah, I think this is where he has to show up again. I have said previously that I think he will be a better player than Harvey Barnes in the end, but I think that's just because of his skill.
He's the same age as Harvey Barnes, and look at the difference.
I think it's because we're in the Championship now. I think if he had the chance to go into the Premier League, I think he would.
It's a topic of conversation for when the season's done. However well Mavididi does, it's whether we can talk about if you think he deserves his spot in the Premier League.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if he deserves, or if we need to get a new player. Because I think, again, we've said a few times that once this season's done, if we get promoted, it's going to be another massive rebuild and another massive refresh because there's going to be 8, 9, 10 players again out of contract. I think there's more players out of contract than we've just got rid of. And I know some of them aren't as big as, like Tielemans and that, but Ndidi, Iheanacho, they are out of contract. Vestergaard, where does he stand? Do you give him a new contract if he's obviously playing very well? All food for thought, depending on how the season ends, really. But for right now, Mavididi is the best winger spot, I think, for us on the left.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to leave the right side for now because we've got a few choices now back into the fold. But I'm going to put in mine first for the midfielders. And I think the only choice for one side is Dewsbury. As much as I've not been his biggest fan this season, which you're going to say how, because he's probably been one of the best midfielders this season.
The best midfielders in the league.
I don't know. I think maybe it has to be in there for the Leeds game. If someone like QPR, I didn't know why he couldn't have been dropped, because I don't think we did need him in that game. But again, consistency, you might as well keep playing to get a bit more form in them. And he does want to score goals.
I mean, if he's fit, he plays. He's a very solid player. He's 24, he's still young, 25 now. I mean, in football terms, he's not too young.
Yeah.
But what I was trying to point across, he's played in the Premier League. He's played for Luton in the Championship. He knows how to manage himself. He's another one of these players that's been on 4 yellow cards for a while. So he's managing himself very well, like Wink says. He knows how to keep the ball. He knows how to turn it. We saw it loads. I was watching it. And he kept turning the ball and he kept getting fouled. But, he was a very key player against QPR. And I think against someone like Leeds, he's going to wind them up, being a solid player in the midfield. And again, I don't think you can really replace him. Cassidy had a great game against Sunderland. And then against QPR, he's invisible again, really. I didn't see him do anything. So,
yeah. And I've put Dewsbury on there because I know you're going to put him in. And then I'm going to...
So I think we're going to agree in this bit.
This is where I'm going to change this player up.
Yeah, I think we're going to agree.
And I'm going to put Casey McAteer. I'm guessing
we're not going to agree.
He came into the role of that position when he got subbed on, and I thought he did quite well there. Yes, he's probably better on the wing, but we've got Fatawu, and I think he has to be in that position. So for me, that's where Casey McAteer would slot in if he does play. You probably have to say on form before he got injured, he was probably our best player.
We scored 5 goals.
He scored goals. Yes, I wasn't saying he was amazing, but he was scoring goals consistently.
Someone from the youth academy who not many fans would have, picked to be in and around the team. When you see the likes of Atkin and Fatawu come into the team, I think he's held himself very well. I don't think he starts against Leeds just because it's been out for a month now. So for me, if I don't start McAteer, I think he's going to come on as... He's a good option, and I think he needs to ease his way back in the team. I think I'm going to start on the right wing. Fatawu has been a very good player. I think he's created a lot of chances. He's stuck on his plays very well. And you can tell that Championship, I think, is a too good league for himself. Obviously, he's a young player. He come from Lisbon, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So he's playing, they're a Champions League team, if not Europa League team.
He feels, for me, Fatawu feels like a bit of a fresh air because we've not had that sort of wing on the right. Since Mahrez, which we always have to keep going back to, we've not had a winger who's not consistent, but a player that always seemed like a big threat. Yeah. We had like Diabate, we had who was the other guy we had on the wing? We had so many others you could probably name.
There's Gazelle,
none of them really was consistent or even anywhere near attacking threat.
We've had a lot of options.
Fatawu is.
Again, we're in a different league now, so the quality of standards is worse. Mm-hmm. I think if you had Perez on the right wing in this league, he'd be tearing it up. So
I'm going to quickly put Fatawu in there as well because I think he's the only choice for me anyway.
Yeah. Again, McAteer just come back from injury for me. That's why he's not in my team.
Who are you going to put in your position?
See, again, it's really tough to judge. I don't think Cassidy had a very good game. I'd like to put Atkin in that position, but again, if he's not fit, I don't know if he is fit. And if he is fit, he's coming back from an injury for a few weeks, so it's tough to put him straight into the Leeds game. I don't trust Cassidy enough to be in that position, so I'm really struck for who.
And indeed he's injured.
I do put, and indeed he is injured. So
you've either got to put Atkin or Casey McAteer if you don't want to put Cassidy in there.
I really don't know how to start with this one. I think, in my honest opinion, the best player to start would be Atkin. So I know that he might not be fit, and I know he's been out for injured, but I much prefer Atkin over Cassidy. And I hate to say it, I don't really see what the rave is about Cassidy. People are saying give him a chance. I heard he was a pretty stinky player at Reading last season.
Don't get me wrong, I thought he did brilliantly at Sunderland. He did times he probably should have scored. twice in about 2 minutes. But
we've said that about a bunch of players.
Yes.
I'm going to bring up Samari from last season. He played what 40 games for us maybe in his time at Leicester.
I forgot about him.
And he's still a Leicester player, it's just on
He
loan.
is, yeah.
But he had one good game against Everton, was it, last season, and everyone was raving about him. Yeah. But that was the only thing he did in his 2 years at Leicester, and everyone was like, he's such a great player. I think Cassidy, again, you've got to be careful not to let that one decent Sunderland performance whitewash.
That's why I gave him the chance to play against QPR.
That's why
an even worse opponent, and he didn't even do much.
Yeah, sometimes it's just one of those things. Sunderland were a better team than QPR. Maybe he looks better against the better teams. It sounds weird.
Yeah.
But, that's always been our notorious bogey thing, isn't it? Where we play teams like Liverpool, we beat them 2-1, and then we play bottom of the table, Burnley, we lose to them 1-0. And then we've seen that happen in the past, and that's kind of been our Achilles heel, where we beat the good teams and we struggle against the worst teams. Yeah. But for me, Cassidy, again, I think against Leeds, he was too weak. He had too many mistakes in him, a bit like Mavididi. But Mavididi, I know that that's not his game. I know that he's not consistently poor. But for me, I've seen too much of that from Cassidy, that against Leeds, if he gives the ball away in a vital position like he did against QPR, they're going to capitalise and they're going to score, because their team is, again, they're fighting for that top 2 spot. They believe, I've seen Leeds fans think they can win the league as well, and probably rightly so. They do have a very good team. I don't think it's better than ours, but I do think they're on track to be the other team that gets promoted automatically aside us. I wouldn't risk it against. I wouldn't risk it. I would really want our best team out there, and I don't think Hackney is that position.
I agree. I don't think Cassidy's good enough to start against the second or third best team in the league for me. And it's rightly so, because we played Southampton, or we played, who else was it, Preston at the time, and I don't think he played in them games either, did he? I don't think he's going to be that quality. Terence says, I'd love to see Atgun get bags of energy. Again, if he is fit, hopefully he might come in. David says Ndidi will be a big miss for this game. I think
Ndidi would be my first choice if he was fit, but we know he isn't, so there's no point in
talking about him.
Really put him in contention, because we know he's not fit. It's a shame, but we've got to play for what we've got. And
David, who says Dewsbury has to play, thought he was awful against QPR though. Again,
it depends how you watch it. If you're watching the highlights or if you're watching it in real time, it's difficult to judge how he played. I was watching it on the telly and I thought he played a very good game, to be fair. I was watching him in the good positions. In real life, you might have seen him do more video. Obviously, it's more easier for you to say, well, he wasn't doing that much, but because obviously when you watch it on telly, you're only watching the ball. And, you see Dewsbury when he's on the ball, because that's how it works with the telly. But I thought he had a fairly okay game against QPR. I thought he turned them and he did look like the leader on the pitch, and he did very well for me.
I'm going to bring this comment up because I don't know how anyone could realise it. McAteer has played on both sides. I don't remember seeing Mavididi play on the left unless I've missed it. He's been playing on the left-hand side every single game he's played.
He's never swapped position once.
That is his role.
Mavididi's been left winger for his whole time at Leicester and his whole career.
So you might have watched the wrong Leicester team. You might be watching the Leicester women, but not
unless you watched it in the mirror or something. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And then the last comment before we go to the strike position is Facebook user says Cassidy did decent against QPR. He's getting in the right positions. Harsh to drop him. I think he'll start against Leeds. Again, it always depends on who you play. For me, obviously, Ndidi isn't fit. If McAteer doesn't start, for me, I think it would be Cassidy. Because I don't think you bring back Atgun so quickly. I know
it's a tough one. For me, I'm just noticing he does a lot of mistakes. And I think against someone like Leeds, they'll capitalise. I think, again, I'm putting it in the context of a bit of an unrealistic standard. If we played someone like Liverpool in the Premier League, and he did that, they go on to score from a lot of the mistakes that we have been doing in the positions we shouldn't be. I think if you watch his game, if he does start against Leeds and he does well, obviously it's hard to judge because he's had one good game, but I've seen him have a handful of bad games. If you go back and watch his games in real time, I know that's a lot to ask and you're never going to do it. But from my memory of watching him, I just remember him getting into positions. I think it was Norwich or something when we beat them fairly comfortably. But he was getting into positions where he was giving the ball away. He came off the pitch and he was like, great, you've got 10 minutes to show what you can do. But he was just constantly giving the ball away and refusing to pass it. When he had 3 men on him, the pass was right there and he was trying to do some fancy turns. I just think against someone like Leeds, if he starts and he's doing that, they are going to capitalise. Yeah. And I don't think we can really afford to let them capitalise on some silly mistakes when we know we're better than that. And again, he might not do those mistakes because we saw against Sunderland, very good player against them, but he's one of those, like I bring up Samari, I've seen him have one good game in about 10 bad games so far this season.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you put the hatred aside from Samara because we've not seen him great, but I think I agree with David. I think he asked, would Samari be a good cover for Winks if we bought him? They hopefully bought him back in.
I think there's a deeper meaning. To why he's not here. I think he's gone because one, the wages are very high for him, and two, he was one of the reasons why we didn't do very well. I think Vardy is one of those players who's come out and said there was a lot of players last season that were very toxic and were very negative. And I think Samora could have very easily been one of those players that too big for his boots, better than he thought he was. And I just think him going, we didn't need him. We don't need him. Winks is a 10 times better player. If you told me Winks or Samari when we signed Samari, I would have snapped hands and said, give me Winks right now. I wouldn't have took Samari in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I just see the point of he is the only kind of player we've got in the club that, even though he's not here,
potentially
he probably could be that dropping player.
You could argue for Ndidi, who is a defensive midfielder usually. I know he's not fit, but if Winks was to get injured, you'd probably put Ndidi or Chowdhury in that position. Yeah.
Right. Last position, Sam. And I'm just going to ask you to say it at the same time to see if we both agree, because I'm trying to find where the chat is now. So both going to say the names, and I think we're both going to say the same one, but it's all down to
Danny Ward.
Danny Ward, yeah.
No, I think against Leeds, I'm putting Vardy up front.
Okay, yeah.
Because I think he's going to be a bit of a brick S-house. I'm not going to swear, obviously it's only midday. But I do think against Leeds, he's a more dangerous threat than Iheanacho is. He knows what kind of game it is. He knows that he's a wind-up merchant. And I do think he's going to love to get a goal against Leeds. And I think he'll be very much up for it. As Phil's just walking away, dying from coughing. I do think that Vardy is the better player for Leeds. I do think he's more of a wind-up merchant. And I think he'll play better. And I think you're going to agree to some extent, really, that Vardy will be the one up front.
We know what Vardy's going to give us. Yes, he might not score, but even if he doesn't score, he's going to get in them positions to give other players room to make the plays and whatnot. So we know what he's going to be like. Yes, Kel, at times this season has been better than Vardy, but against the level of opposition in Leeds, you've got to put your best attacking force.
Again,
and Kel does come on and score goals when he gets substitution.
Yeah, it's not an issue, I don't think, with strikers. Obviously, we know Tom Cannon is on his way to being fit. Well, I don't know if I don't think he'll feature against Leeds.
I think Cannon will come in later in the stage when it comes to AFCON. He will be. He'll be the switcheroo with Daka. Sorry, not Daka, but he'll be the switcheroo with Vardy and Cannon.
Oh yeah, that's where it's going to be out, and so is Daka.
That's what I'm saying. So that's where the two kind of come into.
Excuse me. Yeah, obviously, I think we've signed him for a long-term plan. A bit. We've obviously seen him have a good spell at Preston last year. Obviously, he's been out for a very long time by the time of it with his back injury. So again, these players need to be eased into it. As we've seen with Pereira last season under Rodgers, rush him straight back into it. As we've seen the last 3 seasons under Rodgers, in fact, they'd rush players way too quickly, and bam, 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 they've been injured. Obviously, we've seen Justin, Ricardo, they're still both fit.
Bang, bang, bang. Yes, you're right.
Read off some more comments. I think we both obviously said our teams.
Last question, or the last comment of the day then. Scott says, I really want to give Daka a shot, whether naive or not. I can't, as much as I do rate Daka in some way, he's not starting against Leeds. He can't.
It doesn't. I don't think it matters about whether we want him to start or not. I genuinely don't think he's a good player. I know it sounds very picky, but he came on the other day for 10 minutes, and literally the only thing I saw him do was give away a free kick 20 yards outside of our box. And I'm pretty sure they almost scored from it. And that's the only thing I saw Daka do, was almost give them the equaliser. And I know that's me probably pinpointing him, but for me, he played in the Austrian league, and that league is, it's not known for a reason, because it's not a very good league. It's not very good teams in it. Daka, he's had his time. He's played 50-odd games. He's done nothing, really, at Leicester, apart from 4 goals in 1 game. great game. A bit like Samari said, can have one good game, but he's played 50 bad ones amongst them. Daka, for me, I think you might see him play a little bit this season, but just purely to get a few pennies of him out the door. And I genuinely could see him leaving or going on loan in January to somewhere.
Yeah, I agree completely, to be honest. As much as I rate Daka, I think he's done at Leicester. I think he needs to find a club that he suits him better. But like you've seen the team, guys. The only change is Atgun and Cassidy. Not Cassidy, sorry, Atgun and McAteer in for Cassidy. He might basically be the same team as just played against QPR and Sunderland, but we'll wait and see. Make sure you put your comments in, and we'll catch you on the next show. See you in a bit, guys.